Welcome back to another episode of the Plant-Based DFW podcast show with Dr. Riz and Maya. And this is a podcast where we talk about lifestyle medicine. Today's bonus episode was recorded last year in 2019. This was the first time that we attended a plant-based potluck by Pat and Dianne Doyle of Plant-Based Dallas. They were both recently featured in the Dallas Morning News for the work that they've been doing for the last 6 years. They are both cancer survivors who have an incredible story, and they learned about the power of plant-based foods months after making drastic choices. To learn more about their story, you can listen to our episode 8 of our podcast, and I will also add a link to the show notes. We got to know them last year and have now attended several of their events. As a matter of fact, I learned about jar swaps from Dianne Doyle. In this episode, Dr. Riz introduces us to the group. It was a casual conversation that I happened to film with my iPhone and have now finally had time to edit. Dr. Riz talks about the devastating effects that lifestyle choices can have on the body and why he now prescribes plant-based nutrition to his patients. Dr. Riz addresses our initiatives to help spread the word about lifestyle medicine and plant-based nutrition and some of the plans that we had. Now, keep in mind that this was pre-COVID, so a lot of our events have now been canceled as a result. I hope that you enjoy this episode, and thanks again for listening. Remember to subscribe to our channel to hear more great episodes like this one. Links to our YouTube channel, newsletter, podcast, and links for our guests are also located in the show notes.
Thank you for allowing me to talk, and thank you for having us here tonight. This is wonderful. It's I'm 2 years into plant-based nutrition, and it's a rare occasion where I can come somewhere and just pick anything I want to eat and know that I can enjoy it and not worry about it. We just actually finished the holistic holiday cruise for the first time. And that was just wonderful because it was just a joy to just walk around and do whatever we wanted. I'm a vascular surgeon, and very briefly, dealing with my patients actually opened my eyes to the tragedy of what's going on in our world and our health. And I realized our patients are spending the last 20 years of their lives dying, and miserably dying, with coming back to me with operation after operation. I'm chopping their legs off, they're having strokes, they're having heart attacks, they're dying. And the funny thing is, I was not taught that atherosclerosis was a treatable disease. I was told it's a chronic indolent disease that's going to kill you eventually. And that was in 1998, well after the work of Esselstyn and Ornish. And finally my eyes opened, fortunately through the help of my wife. About 5 years ago, she made me go see Rip Esselstyn. Made me. I was like, who's this fireman? Why do I want to go see a fireman? And that led to the China study and preventing and reversing heart disease. And now I started teaching this to my patients. I lived it as an example of my own life, but also teaching it to my patients. But we decided that we wanted to spread this message even bigger and try to get people to before they get to be my patient. Because by the time they're my patients, they already need operations and they're already very sick. And yes, going plant-based will help them. It'll change the trajectory of their life, but they're already very sick and having lots of problems. And I wanted to get to people. I actually would be very happy to put myself out of business. Okay, and I sincerely mean that, because what I treat is some of the most horrible stuff in the world, and it's a bad way to live. It's a bad way to die. So we spend our time now. Kind of our missions is, number one is to empower people to understand that they have control over their health. A second mission of ours is that we are working very hard at the level of education, which is our medical students and our residents. And we're working with people like Dr. Stancic in Code Blue, Dr. Clapper, who is going around and talking to all of the medical students across the United States and Canada, and even Mexico. So we're trying to educate people at that level. I didn't get any nutritional training. Okay, none whatsoever. And yet people come to me and they look at me as I'm some sort of nutritional guru. And they'll ask me, what do I eat? What do I do? And no, my answer used to be, you just need to eat right and exercise. And that was it. That's all I could tell them. Lose weight, eat right and exercise. And now I know that the message is much stronger, that it's much more detailed, and that there's a real answer that can tremendously impact their disease. Not just the cardiovascular disease that I treat, but most chronic illnesses. 80% of what kills us. And I know we're all going to die, okay? But do we have to spend the last 2 or 3 decades of our lives miserable? Okay, and I'd love to see our world change. The other thing is when I get here, I got here through nutrition, but we all come through different directions. I started to realize what we're doing to our world, and it's unsustainable. And if we want to have a world for our children, we've got to change. It's such a devastating disease that when I was able to finally, through my path, open my eyes and see what we were doing with our standard American diet, I became a plant-based physician. And that's what I teach my patients. And then now with my wife, we are Team Buki. And we like to, we spread the word anywhere we can. Just to speak a little bit about, the standard American diet is so bad for us. What I consider it doing to us is it's injuring us on a daily basis. The way I look at things is that our body was created beautifully. It's this amazingly complex thing that works. Everything works together, and it couldn't just happen by accident. It was created to be healthy. But somewhere along the line, we went off the path, and we started eating the standard American diet, which injures us 3 times a day, 4 times a day. The food we put in ourselves is killing us. And so the thing, and what are those things? It's the refined foods, the processed foods, and meat. Okay. Actually, believe it or not, when you break it down, 88% of our diet is refined foods, processed foods, and meat. Only 12% is plant-based, and even half of that 12%, 6%, is refined plant-based stuff. So when you really look at it, the standard American diet is only really eating about 6% of what we should. Most Americans get less than 1 serving of vegetables a day. Most Americans get less than 1 serving of fruit a day, and we really should be getting maybe 3 or 4 of each. So this getting back to the injury we're causing, it's causing injury and inflammation. And the analogy I like to use is if we put our thumb on the table and we hit it with a hammer every day, that the thumb might want to heal. It's going to try, but as it starts to heal, we hit it with a hammer again, and we're just doing that over and over again. And not only is it going to not heal, it's going to continue to get worse. Eventually, we're going to lose our thumb. And that's what we're doing to our bodies in many, many different ways. The standard American diet is injuring our bodies, it's causing inflammation, and it's injuring us in so many different ways, as far as heart disease, kidney disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, cancer. Okay, 8 of the 10 leading causes of death are foodborne. Basically, they are self-inflicted injury. We do it to ourselves. So my theory then is that, as I've come about to believe, is that if we stop injuring ourselves, our bodies heal. And so a plant-based diet, which is what I'm sure you are all aware, is what we're here today to talk about and promote, stops that injury process. And what's really amazing, is how fast the body heals. I can have somebody come in with high cholesterol, and I can put them on a statin. And that statin is going to, over the course, I bring them back in a year and check it, and their cholesterol might go from 227 to 217. Okay, and the doctors are all clapping, and wow, look at that statin, and we drop 10 points, and they're still going to die of heart disease. We didn't do anything for them except make them spend a lot of money. But on a plant-based diet, lifestyle, in just a few weeks to a couple of months, you can see that cholesterol drop 40 points, 50 points, 60 points. It's absolutely amazing when you stop feeding your body that bad food and you stop injuring it, how it starts to heal. This is the one diet, the one lifestyle that takes care of everything. You don't really need to do anything special, whether it's to prevent cancer or to prevent heart disease or to prevent diabetes. When you eat this kind of when you have this kind of approach and this kind of lifestyle, it takes care of everything. Atherosclerosis is hardening of the arteries. It's the same thing as coronary artery disease. I treat atherosclerosis everywhere in the body except the heart and the brain. And so I do the legs, the neck, the belly, I treat the people who have strokes. I clean out the carotid arteries. When people have gangrene, I do the bypasses or the stents. And the devastating effects of that are the strokes, okay, or are people losing their limbs, or people dying. And it's a shame that it takes that kind of an event for people to sometimes realize that's what it takes for them to change their lives. And in fact, many times they don't. Well, the patients who I see are very advanced. They're the ones who already need an operation, already need a bypass, already need something. But that doesn't mean that I don't counsel them to change their ways, because they can at least halt progression of their disease and maybe stop it where it is.
So is there any point where physically your body is unable to recover from that hardening of the arteries or the cholesterol?
Well, I would say that the answer to that is that there is a point where people get where they have to have an operation because the immediacy or the acuity of the problem requires it.
Right.
But that if it's not, but if they can change their diet, they will begin to arrest and reverse the disease. There's one of the things I point to is the study by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, where he took 25 patients, the heart patients, who were unable to do bypasses on them. They were basically considered terminally ill. Their doctors told them, "We can't operate on you. You're too sick, and so you're just going to go home and die." And he took those patients and he put them on a plant-based diet, and albeit a very strict one.
Right.
But he basically, I think 24 of those 25 patients were still alive 12 years later. And so, yes, you can make a major effect if people are willing to make that change. I use the term, I was plugging holes and putting out fires. But I wasn't making my patients get better. And in fact, I was taught that atherosclerosis was not curable, even as late as 1998. And this was after Dr. Esselstyn's work and after Dr. Dean Ornish's work, where they proved that you could reverse atherosclerosis with a plant-based diet. It is, by the way, the only way to reverse atherosclerosis. The medications that they put us on, they're just managing it. They're just kind of temporizing it. It's a very interesting fact. We used to use the number 200 as the cholesterol number we want Americans to be under. But that number was the average American.
Right.
Well, 40% of the average Americans died of heart disease. So they were saying, okay, if you keep your cholesterol at 199, only 40 of you are going to die of heart disease. What they should have done is take 100 plant-based people and check their cholesterol and say, these people are not going to die of heart disease. What is that number? And now they've gotten a little bit smart. The American College of Cardiology is really is progressing, and it's been under some great leadership. There was a recent leader, Kim Williams, MD. He's a vegan, and he was the president of the association, and they're starting to understand that lifestyle is the key. When for hypertension and for high cholesterol, in their guidelines, the first thing you should do is change your diet. And then if that doesn't do it, then start you on medication. Unfortunately, most people don't change their diets. And unfortunately, most cardiologists don't pay attention to their guidelines.
Right. Well, that's also a problem with insurance companies because they don't want you to tell them to eat. If you have a problem and there's a medicine to make you better, don't the doctors prescribe the medicine so that they don't get in trouble by not prescribing you something? So isn't there legal issues with that?
There are, in fact, because the standard of care that has been established is exactly, which is not right, and that's what we need to do. What we're doing on a daily basis, we need to change the standard of care. So the American College of Cardiology, with their guidelines now, are saying if you're hypertensive, the first thing is change your diet, eliminate salt. Or if you have high cholesterol, change your diet. So the standards of care are being established now and can be changed. And so if a doctor does that, they're not going to get in trouble. Okay, but the problem is most doctors, the way our system is designed, The patient needs to get in and out of that because they got to see 30 patients, and it's real easy to write a prescription and get them out. And most doctors don't understand nutrition.
Right. I mean, that's the whole concept of treatment, right? That's when a doctor wants to treat you for something.
Yep.
Right now, that the whole food plant-based isn't part of any treatment.
It makes money for nobody.
Right.
What we're really starting to understand now is I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but there's certain things that we have to get at, and one is behavioral change, and how do we affect behavioral change? We were all raised from the minute we were born with this belief set, and this belief set was not created by science; it was created by advertising. Mm-hmm. Social, political, and economic forces teach us how to eat.
Well, the education system. I mean, that's really
what. So we understand that behavioral changes are important. The other thing that I think we need to teach people is plant-based food can be delicious. What a great meal we had tonight, you know?
Do you have any anecdotal stories of people coming back to you and saying, I'm better?
Oh yeah, there's lots of stories.
So
the big ones I see are hypertension, and okay, so the risk factors for atherosclerosis, which is the number one killer, and cancer, the number two killer. I'm not talking about cancer, but plant-based applies to everything. But the big risk factors for atherosclerosis are obesity, hypertension, diabetes, sedentary lifestyle, tobacco use, okay? And so with a good plant-based diet, obesity is treated, okay? Hypertension is treated, diabetes is treated. There's a measure of diabetes we use now. It's called a hemoglobin A1C. And it will tell us what the last 90 days of a person's blood sugar has been. And we know if it's above a certain number, 5.5 or 6, that means that person is diabetic. And I've seen people's hemoglobin A1Cs drop from 8 and 9 down to a normal level within 3 or 4 months. Okay.
So you do get to see the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
vegetables.
Yeah. and hypertension too. What I like is that there are measurable ways to show people that they have benefits by drawing labs and checking blood sugars, and blood pressure is a nice one to show. The blood sugars are a nice one to show. Weight is a good one. You know, these are good indicators. It shows people that they're having progress. Lots and lots of stories. We have this one in particular is 2 brothers who had one of them had a heart attack and went to the cardiologist, and they wanted to put stents in him. But they learned and read about plant-based nutrition, and instead decided to do that. And all of their numbers have changed, and I think they're about 8 months into it. His angina, which is heart pain, is gone, and that's a little bit harder when you're talking about the heart.
Scary.
It's a little harder to measure. You know, we can measure cholesterol and saturated fat and blood pressures, but it's hard to look at the coronary arteries the same way as when you put a catheter in and you squirt dye. And so we have exercise tests where we can look at things and other things which give us some indirect measures, but other than undergoing another catheterization, which is a big deal, it's hard to go back. But once again, Dean Ornish has done these studies, and these studies were done back in the 90s, and they were able to show regression of coronary heart plaque. Through our talks, and we get to meet people, and they come and talk to us and tell us things, and we've met another young lady who has reversed her MS through a plant-based diet, and another lady who had 4 autoimmune disorders, Raynaud's disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and I can't remember what the other 2 were, but she was so debilitated at a young age. She was a nurse. She was so debilitated at a young age, she couldn't have children. And when she went on a plant-based diet, within 1 year she was able to get pregnant, and she was able to have 3 children over the next 5 years. And she's healthy, vital, and she's back to work at a very, very tough and demanding job, I might add. And so that's changed her life. So the stories are there. There's story after story after story.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, even I've even got my own personal stories. I'm 54 years old, but in my mid to late 40s, I was in the best shape of my life. And I was a P90X user, and I was doing exercise 7 days a week, and I could run a 10K in 40 minutes. And but my blood pressure was borderline high. My blood sugar was borderline high. My cholesterol was 207. My triglycerides were a little bit high. And yet I was eating an extremely lean, low-fat, but very high-protein diet. Okay, I was eating a lot of meat. About 50% of my calories was coming from protein. I thought that's what I thought was the right thing to do. And that's when I discovered plant-based nutrition and I started doing all these things. All of that went away. I'm amazed. My blood pressure runs 90/60. And I don't run like 7 days a week like I used to, you know. So I mean, even in myself, I think I've stopped my progression.
Yeah.
I was heading in a certain direction, and I've stopped that for myself.
You've been listening to the Plant-Based DFW podcast show. If you like our content, please like, share, and leave a review. Our goal is to provide quality episodes to help support the community.